Hello, welcome back. Today we're here to talk about 2011's Captain America: The First Avenger. So I enjoy this movie. It's not my favorite, but I enjoy it. So just starting with the plot and the story, it's about a guy named Steve Rogers. They're in the middle of World War II. He really wants to enlist, but he's got way too many health issues to do that. Until a German scientist finds him, offers him an opportunity to be able to take some super soldier serum, which he does, turns into Captain America, and the rest of the movie is about him fighting off a Nazi side, like a spin-off of a Nazi cult called Hydra. It was called a Hybrid, but it's called Hydra. And that's pretty much the plot line in a summary.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think that the storytelling is what is really good about this movie, especially in the beginning. Because you see Steve's journey from this puny guy who can't do anything.
But wants to,
has these great intentions. He gets beat up all the time by these guys. And then you see him transform, and how even after he transforms, he's not instantly a war hero. They turn him into like a commercial for a little while.
Right, because now he's a big guy that can't do what he wants to.
Yeah, exactly. And so eventually he has to earn his place in that. And it's very good. I think as an origin story, it works really well. What docks it for me is towards the middle, it becomes a very summarized version of what could have been a good movie, because it just turns into a bunch of montages through World War II until the last battle.
Yeah. I think that they were really hurrying to get Captain America into present day, which is fine, because I don't want to watch him in World War II the whole time, but I just it does feel like they were like, all right, we have to get his origin story, and then we need to get him in the present day, and something should probably happen between that.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I've heard this complaint about the MCU before, and it's true enough. It's like the first act, you establish who the hero is going to be, and then the second act, they have to tell you a lot of information. So they give you montages, they give you lots of exposition. They'll usually throw in like an action sequence at the end of Act 2. Just to reward you for sitting through the rest of it. And then Act 3 is when you get everything. Formula works, not complaining about it, but what I am saying is that it's pretty apparent in this movie that that's what they were doing.
Well, in Act 2 in particular, because it is mostly just montage of scenes that probably could have been pretty cool. Because
I don't know.
You see scenes of Captain America going in and taking out Hydra bases with his crew. Which, granted, I feel like you can only have so many of those, and we already kind of got one of those.
Thing. Show me one full one.
Yeah.
Show me one full one.
Which they did.
Well, we saw him break everybody out of the prison.
Right, yeah.
But show me one where there's stakes. Show me one where he runs in with a group of people, they charge, he's blocking bullets with his shield, some of his comrades are getting shot, show his emotion.
Yeah.
And then you don't need to show a montage. You can just kind of explain that wasn't the only time that happened.
Right.
It seems like they had the idea that he was gonna, destroy a couple of concentration camps, which weren't really concentration camps. I feel like he could have had other priorities.
Yeah, yeah.
But, a movie's a movie. He couldn't have actually killed Hitler, because that would have taken the realism out of there.
Right. So instead they made a cosmic cube to throw in a bunch of weapons,
Sure, right. And you might as well, because
why not, right?
But anyway, so the plot and story, I gave it like a 3.5, because it was better than it could have been.
For sure.
It was better than average. I wasn't like hating every second of it.
No, and like I said, I actually really like the storytelling. I gave it a 4. I only dock a point because of the montages. And the other thing is, it's not just World War II that they montage through. There's actually a lot of montage in this movie. They montage through Steve Rogers' commercial side of things when he's first becomes Captain America and he has to go and sell bonds and things like that. That's all montage, which they don't need to expound on that. I'm all for that being a montage. But they also montage through his training at camp. So, there's a lot of things, which granted, that doesn't need a lot of time either. So, I don't blame it. It's just because there is so much of it in the movie that you almost feel like you're watching something on fast forward a little bit rather than watching a complete story. And so it's good. I like the storytelling. I really do like the first act in particular, and I even like the last act pretty well. It's that middle that struggles a little bit for me.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. That's definitely at least worth 1 point. The other half point that I'm going to take off is because the timeline of this movie is a little confusing. Like, I know that it all happens linearly, but my question is, did this plot of this movie, did the story of this movie take place over the course of a week, over the course of a year, over the course of 10 years? It's never really clear. Yeah. We know that the whole thing takes place during World War II, except I think that Hitler was, like, dead by the end of the movie. I think that they had mentioned that he was, like, no longer a part of the picture. So I don't
remember.
I just feel like I want to know how long things were happening.
Presumably for a couple of years, to be honest.
You'd assume so.
Yeah.
But, like, at the same time, they don't really talk about that. I feel like it would be really frustrating if they were at it for years, and that would have been something worth maybe a conversation.
Yeah.
Again, it's good. It's a good plot story. I don't have any issues.
Yeah.
I don't have any, like, major issues with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it had some places it could improve.
Sure.
It's an allied effort made up of the best minds in the free world. Our goal is to create the best army in history. But every army starts with one man.
Roger! Get off of there!
At the end of this week, we will choose that man.
Let's go!
He will be the first in a new breed of super soldiers.
Roger! Get that rifle out of the mud!
And they will personally escort Adolf Hitler to the gates of hell.
The acting and characters in this movie, I thought were pretty well established. I always have the same major gripe with these movies, and that is there can be other threat other than the antagonist that is a clone of the main character.
Sure.
And in this case, technically, the antagonist came first.
Yeah.
But, Red Skull, I don't think he's a super compelling villain.
No, and what's frustrating to me, and that's actually the biggest issue I have with this one too, is he could have been a pretty cool villain because he's very, he doesn't have any sort of empathy for anybody else. He believes he's above everything else. Mm-hmm. They're all ants to him. He's a god in his own eyes. He's a god to them. And I think he could have been, but the thing is, they don't let him do anything other than talk for most of the movie. The scenes with the Red Skull in it, and Hugo Weaving is a great actor, and he plays a really great villain. I've seen him in other movies as the villain. He's great. But he just, anytime he's on screen in this movie, he's talking, or he's being threatening in the way he's presenting what he's going to do. You don't see him actually do anything until the last battle between him and Captain America. At the very beginning you see him get the Tazaract, but most of that is his army. So, he's always backed up by army. Captain America is fighting his army. You don't see any action sequences with the Red Skull until the very end. And he just kind of seems like he's there, but not a threat, really. It seems like Hydra's the threat, not him, and even though he's the founder of Hydra. And so... That's the biggest issue I have with the Red Skull, but other than him, Chris Evans is a great Captain America. You feel like he's...
Tommy Lee Jones, excellent.
Tommy Lee Jones is a lot of fun. I like Peggy Carter. I think she's a strong female lead, and I think that their chemistry, those two actors' chemistry, was really good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. At some point, though, not in this movie, but at some point, Captain America just needs to get over it. You know?
Sure.
How long... He just, went back in time. He hadn't even gone on, one real date with this girl. And he went back in time, spent all of his time with her? That's nuts.
Yeah.
That dude's crazy.
That's one of the things I actually, with Endgame, that I might talk about when we get to that, but it's
anyway.
kind of interesting. But anyway, with this movie, their chemistry is great. There's a scene that I actually really enjoy where he's trying out the new shields, and she's mad at him because he'd been making out with some girl. Him, yeah. And she just starts to shoot at him, and then he has to use the shield, and she's like, oh yes, that looks like it would work out well. She's just got so much personality and sass, and she's fun to watch.
Yeah, the acting was all good.
Yeah.
There's not one bad actor. And that's, I take off points, and this is just every MCU movie is just going to have to deal with this for the foreseeable future. I don't need a clone of the hero. It's time. Just give us anyone else.
Yeah, and I mean, I've never really gotten into the Marvel comic lore, but I mean, obviously they pulled these clones from somewhere, so apparently every Marvel hero has an evil clone.
Well, that's what you'd think.
But the movies have to use them in every single one. That's the one thing. And I get, from my understanding, and I've never read Captain America comics, but my understanding is Red Skull actually is his, like, arch nemesis.
And that's fine. But
Yeah.
the other thing is, if you're going to have an arch nemesis, you really shouldn't kill him off.
No.
You know?
And I had hoped that he would come back in one of the number ones.
Yeah,
and he does eventually.
He did, but it was
not
stupid.
not as anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as anything worth mentioning. So
I think that they did a disservice to the idea of Captain America movies, and I will say this is not my favorite of the Captain America movies.
No.
By far.
No.
And so, you know, it just goes to show that they didn't need to make. And the other thing about Red Skull, and here's what I will say, and then I want to move on, actually. That Red Skull, I think, is a waste of a character because you don't really get to see him, and you were saying this earlier, you don't really get to see him utilized. He also has the super serum.
Yeah, he's Captain America, but bad.
Yeah, so why didn't he ever really use it? You know, he used the weapons that they had. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
And it just felt like kind of a wasted opportunity. I think that he would have been a great second villain. I think the first
bring him
villain,
in the second one.
Yeah, the first villain, you have Captain America fight somebody that's not nearly as strong as him, so you could be like, okay, this guy, Captain America's awesome.
Heck, have Hitler be the first villain.
Sure.
And have the Red Skull be like the sidekick who also survives into, because the thing is they're both from World War II.
Right.
So have Red Skull also somehow survive into the future. I don't know how you do
maybe
that.
on purpose.
Maybe on purpose, and maybe he preserves himself or whatever. But then bring him in as the main villain in the second one,
and have him be an equal to Captain America then, and then you're like, what? There's another one?
Yeah.
But instead they did that with Bucky,
which is fine.
It was fine. I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is if a lot of this, there's not like the characters. The acting was good. The characters were fine. It just felt like a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
I felt like they could have done more.
I still gave it a 4.5 because I do enjoy watching the characters. We're being pretty nitpicky with the Red Skull because that's just kind of Marvel villains in general.
Well, and you have to gripe about something.
Exactly. Otherwise, what are we even doing here?
Exactly.
You know? So I do enjoy. I gave it a 4.5. I just docked a little bit for Red Skull, but everybody else is great. I have a lot of fun with the characters. I have a lot of fun with the actors. It's great. It's a great time.
Yep.
What'd you give it?
I also gave it a 4.5. I think I already said that.
Oh, okay.
You are deluded, Captain. You pretend to be a simple soldier, but in reality, you are just afraid to admit that we have left humanity behind. And like you, I embrace it proudly. Without fear. Then how come you're running?
When it comes to the action, I think this is where I get a little lost in this movie, and the reason is back to the montaging. There's not a lot of very clear action in this movie that actually lasts. There's a couple scenes. I enjoy the scene where he's chasing down the spy that was there when he becomes Captain America. That's a cool scene.
Yep.
I like the scene where he breaks his guys out of prison.
Yep.
But really, those are the only two action sequences that really stick out to me. What's the other one?
You're missing one when they all go together to raid the last Hydra base, and he rides in on his motorcycle.
I mean, it's a cool scene, but
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
it doesn't make a lot of impact on me, probably because we already saw him raid a Hydra base, and that's mostly what this movie is. And I know before I was talking about how they should have maybe done more than just one scene of that.
Just one full scene.
Just one full scene of that. I just, and it's a good sequence, and there's nothing bad about the action inherently, other than most of the action sequences is shooting guns in a montage. And
That's all we want, baby.
maybe that's
Guns in a montage.
maybe that's why I struggle with it, because I'm not a gun action kind of guy. I prefer more
Hand to hand.
hand to hand or something more
Lightsabers.
lightsabers.
Why
is
weren't
great.
there any lightsabers in this movie?
Why weren't there any lightsabers in this movie?
One thing that I will say about the action, I think that what action there was done pretty well.
Yeah.
I just feel like there wasn't probably enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
I did give the action a 3.5 because I think that I didn't have any issue. I don't need an action-packed movie. I'm just as happy to watch like a drama. And even at a superhero standpoint, I need some action because that's part of them being a superhero.
Right.
But I don't need it to be filled with action necessarily. I would have appreciated more in this particular case, but at the same time, I was just kind of pleased when you watch an action sequence from this movie. I think that you won't find yourself thinking that was poorly done. I will say there are some action sequences in superhero movies that you can't go, to any corner of the internet without running into, and you won't find any of those in this movie.
No, certainly not. And something else I just remembered that I wanted to bring up is Captain America as a hero is not showcased super well in this movie as far as what he can do.
Yeah.
I think that by the time the Winter Soldier hits, you definitely see more Captain America action that makes him look cool. In this one, his shield is kind of cool, but he's strong and fast. But other than the scene where he's chasing down the dude, that's what he doesn't even have the shield. That's the only scene I could think of that I was like, wow, he looks like he's a cool hero. But the other scenes, I'm like, he looks kind of just like a football player with an American
with a lot of patriotism.
I'm like, it's
patriotic football player, which many are, to be fair. That's definitely true, and I also felt like we didn't really see him do a lot of heroic stuff. Well, I mean, he did save like the other army, the lost platoon or whatever. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of the heroics that he did in this movie seemed like they were out of obligation.
War stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's nice to see him as he develops. I don't have any issue with that because I like to see how he develops.
It's true. He does develop from that. But, yeah. Anyway, I gave action a 2.5. It's not that I find that there was any major issues that make me dislike the action. I just didn't think anything popped enough for me to give it a whole lot more credit than that.
Cinematically, this movie, okay. I mean, I don't really have a ton to say about it. They, thankfully they didn't put him in the comic book accurate Captain America costume because that would have looked dumb.
Except for when he's doing the commercial stuff.
Right, but that was on purpose.
But it actually worked for that.
Yeah,
I thought.
That was on purpose. It's just, I think that the costume design was fine. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I wish that they'd use a little darker coloring on the costume, kind of a little thing, but it seemed a little silly. The music, I can't tell you what it sounded like, but I'm sure it was fine.
I think cinematically this movie was actually very good for a couple different reasons. The costume design is actually one thing that holds it back a little bit for me because his costume really does look like a football jersey to me. He's got the padding, he's got it was weird to me. I don't like the way it looked. But other than that, it's something that really makes this movie and that tone works for Captain America. It feels like a World War II action adventure. I know people. No disrespect to you Captain America fans out there. I know you exist. Know you love your hero, but to me, he's kind of goofy. He's kind of silly. Not so much in the Winter Soldier. They take him a lot more seriously in that one. But I enjoy the tone of this movie. I think it worked for what they were trying to do. I think that it's fun to go back and watch more historical World War II movie with the patriotism that was going on back then. I think that the way that they had everything set up looked really good. I do like the score of this movie. It's not one that I
don't remember it.
I can't really hum right now. Yeah. It's not one of those really memorable ones, but I know that every time I watch it, I enjoy it.
Well, yeah. I mean, and no disrespect to the musicians or the writers. I'm sure you all did a really good job. It's just I don't remember it. It's not Star Wars.
No.
And it's not The Dark Knight. And it's not...
Even 89 Batman.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, score-wise. It's just not something that I will always remember. It's not Indiana Jones or Superman. I mean, we had Tarzan. You know, there's all of these movies where there were just that, if you hear the first note of Star Wars, the rest of the song. If you played any note or any combination of notes from this movie, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the song was.
No. I probably would, but I've seen this movie many times, so that would be why. I gave the cinematics a 4 because I think that cinematically it actually is a lot of fun. It's not like Ben said, it's not Superman, it's not Star Wars, it's not Indiana Jones, it's not something that just cinematically pops and makes you really love it. but it's a good time.
Sure.
It's cinematically, I think it's fun. I think they did a good job making what they wanted to make, and it worked for me.
Yeah. I don't really remember why I gave it a 3. Full disclosure, we had recorded this a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then we found out that the audio cut out. So I'm doing this
Pure
off
based
the
on
dome,
memory,
my guy. So I don't remember why I gave it a 3, but it's a 3 for sure, and I'm standing by that.
Very good. 4 and a 3.
This movie was mostly entertaining.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say about the entertainment value of this movie. If I watch it far enough apart, I'm very entertained by it. If I try to watch it too close together, I'm not entertained at all. It's one that is fun every now and then. It's one that its rewatchability value is there, but it's
Could be higher.
Could be higher, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a good portion of that comes from like what we said in the plot and story, where there's just a lot of montages.
Mm-hmm.
And like montages, there's a reason that like self-aware TV shows make fun of montages.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not like a super creative way of writing. So like entertainment-wise, that certainly didn't help. And then just the fact that it didn't really have anything to offer above and beyond what pretty much every other, the norm for movies.
Right.
So, I give it a 3.5. It's fine.
Yeah, I gave it a 3.5 as well. I am entertained for the most part, and I do like the movie. But it's just, and the thing is, because I've seen it so many times, that's probably part of the problem, is that I get a little bit bored during the middle of it. So there's that. But at 3.5, it's very respectable. It's an entertaining movie. When you total all my scores, I give this movie a 3.7. It's a very solid score. It's a it's a good movie. I wouldn't go as far as to call it like a great, like one of the great ones, but it's good. It's a very good, solid movie.
I give it a 3.6, which I think is a very good representation of how the movie is. It's not bad. It's above average. Mm-hmm. It's in the upper end, but it's certainly not. It's not something that I would turn to again and again and again. It's not something that I can rewatch frequently, and it's not something that I have rewatched frequently. I've probably seen this movie like 2 or 3 times, and I think every time I've watched it has been because he wanted me to.
Probably, yeah. I have seen it many times, mostly because when the first Avengers came out, I went back and watched all of them 100 times over. So I've seen this one many times, and it's good. Yeah, anyway,
that's all that I have to say.
That's really all I got to say about that. Now, the next video you guys will be hopefully watching, if you keep up with us, will be 2012's Ghost Rider: The Spirit of Vengeance.
Oh, my favorite movie.
Yeah, we have some fun things to say about that one.
How many favorite movies do I have?
Oh, at least 3 or 4 at this point.
Yeah, well, Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance is my favorite for sure.
For sure.
It's the best one of all time.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway,
thanks, guys. Bye.
You've been asleep, Cap, for almost 70 years. You gonna be okay?
Yeah, I had a date.